Hello, everybody out there. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar for November 21st, 2024, From Confidence to Competence, Overcoming Secret Management Challenges. And what we're really doing is looking at a bunch of data that we collected from a report that we'll talk about a little bit later. A little bit of housekeeping to get out of the way up front. If you are brand new to our webinars, we do like to reward people for showing up and coming out to these things. So we want to say congratulations to Vinod. I'm sorry, I'm going to mispronounce your last name. I'm just going to say V. Vinod V, who was here last month, and Lemon Ming, who was here last month. They are winners of some pretty fabulous prizes. And if you want to win some fabulous prizes from us, all you have to do is participate. And how you participate is by interacting with us here in the chat and by asking questions today. So we're going to give you a chance to do that right now. And I have a question for everybody, which is, where are you from in the world? Then we'll get into introductions and go from there. So if you want to use the chat and say where you're at in the world, for instance, I'm in Chicago, Illinois, a bright snowy morning here. First day it snowed actually in my fair city. Well, let's go down the line here. Thomas, where are you at in the world?
Hello, in Paris, first day of snow as well. And yeah, I'm the tech content writer at GitGuardian, and I led this project of this report, Voice of Practitioners.
Awesome. And Grace, where are you from?
Yep, I'm from Toronto. I'm working in Canadian insurance. So I think the weather is still not that cold. I don't think we still have our first snow yet. So Chicago beat us this year.
And Chris, where are you dialing in from today?
Hi, so I'm coming in from Boston here in Massachusetts. I'm the product marketing lead for secrets for CyberArk. And it actually rained today, which is the first time it's rained for a long time. And I'm looking forward to a lot of snow so I can do some great snowboarding over the winter. So hopefully it snows a lot.
Wow. That does sound fun. And we got everyone in here from like all over the world. We got someone from the Philippines. We got someone from Zambia, everywhere from India to Indiana. So welcome wherever you're at. So our panel today are the team that help us build and deliver this. Our Voice of Practitioners State of Secret AppSec. You can get a copy of this. No need to sign up for anything else. You already signed up for this. You can just go to this link, scan that QR code, and that will take you to the page. And from there, you can just freely download it. You can go to an anonymous window if you really want to, if you don't trust QR codes or that you'd have to sign up for an additional thing. But you already signed up for this webinar. We already know who you are. And you already told us where you live. So, but anyway, what we did is we surveyed 1,000 IT decision makers across 4 countries, US, UK, Germany, and France. And we found, well, a bunch of findings, and you can go dig in that and read all about it yourself. So we'll pop that link over in chat as we get going here in a second. We are going to open this up for questions at the end of today's webinar. So the last 10, 15 minutes, we will have a chance to ask questions. I'll be moderating that and monitoring that as we go through. I'm going to let the experts actually answer these questions I am going to be asking. And asking for their takes on it. So if you do have a specific question for a specific panelist, please make that clear in your question. Otherwise, I'm going to ask it as a general question when we get to that section. We also have some interactive polls for you that are coming up, so we will get to those when we get to those. But to go to the first major finding that really popped at us that we were a little surprised in, 75% of organizations are confident in their secret management, but yet only 44% of developers are following best practices according to these, again, the same people that gave us that survey data. So Chris, I'm just going to start with you since you're one of the people that helped assemble this. I'm just going to ask you flat out, do we have a false sense of security here? Are we lying to ourselves?
Well, I think we do have a false sense of security for sure. I mean, I think the challenge is the developers essentially know what's really going on because they're writing the code versus the security folks don't necessarily have the visibility they need to all the secrets and secret stores out there, and I think that's just a key challenge. And I think the other thing is there's a lot of hard coding goes on, which is problematic. Maybe not so much anymore, but there's still a lack of rotation, and it's that lack of rotation which I think if you're not rotating your credentials, then basically you're not securing them.
Well said. Grace, what's your opinion on this? Why do you think there's such this gap between what management and these decision makers believe and versus what developers are actually doing?
Okay, so I think first of all is that for a lot of big organizations, they do have, for example, secret vault. They do have secret management practice. It's actually set up top down with all the standards, all the best practice. But sometimes we do not think about developer experience. Like whether it's actually user friendly to use. Like if you actually give me a secret vault and then you ask me to actually fill in a service request in order to actually use it every single time, no one will actually be using it. So I think this is the disconnect within a lot of organizations.
Thomas, anything else to add before we move on to our next finding?
No, I think I completely agree, and we will have the other results of the reports. I think they all tend to point to this direction, highlighting the gap between sometimes the perception of the risk and also the practices, and the confidence level is pretty high, but the reality, the practices are not as good as they wish they'd be.
Well, our next finding points directly to that gap, and that was the one that kind of concerned us at GitGuardian quite a bit when we see this. The average estimated time to remediate secret leak is about 27 days, or the average is 27, not about, it is 27 days across the answers we received. And you can, again, read the report for the full spectrum of this and the findings. But Thomas, I want to start with you. We work at GitGuardian. We day in, day out are helping people remediate this problem.
This was quite the surprise in the report because this is quite low, honestly. 27 days to remediate a leak. We know from our experience when we compare to what we see in practice at GitGuardian, when secrets detection gets implemented on clients' infrastructures, initially our metrics, they tend to show on average a mean time to remediate is closer to 100 or 130 days, something like that. So quite the gap. And I think my guess is that this is because the respondents, when they answer this question, they're not taking into account the backlog of historical incidents, actually, because they probably don't have the visibility over this backlog. And usually we know these secrets, can take months or even years to remediate because the lack of context or the developer has left or something like that. So this pulls the average up. And I think this kind of explains the gap.
So this is our first chance for an interactive poll, another chance for you to interact with us and get on that list for the random drawing. If I'm going to go into a polls and we will, here we go. If I get the right clicks, as you see, I've done a couple not great things on the technical side here. Publish poll. All right, now under the polls section in the interface for Livestorm, you should have a poll you can vote on, and this is anonymous. You won't be revealed here, and you can. I will reveal the results of this a little bit later as people not in. But as you're doing that, as you're finding that and participating, we'll go on to our next panelist asking the same. So I'll go actually back to here and say, Chris, you are someone who also is very deeply concerned with people rotating secrets. And are we just accepting that a breach at this level? Like, is this just old news that, we'll rotate it when we rotate it?
Yeah, so actually I did want to go back to that last question. So why does it take 27 days? So I think, look, there's actually an integration that GitGuardian and CyberArk have done, which if the secret's vaulted and it's leaked and it's detected, then it's actually almost automated to actually remediate that. The challenge is, and it kind of does get back to what you were saying, if the secret's hard-coded, then you don't know if it's used or where it's used in a production environment. So if you just change it, if you just rotate it, then which isn't that difficult to do. But the problem is, if it's in a production environment and you don't rotate that version of it, then you're going to bring down that production application. So that's a huge problem. So that's why it takes so long to make those changes. So to your point around the question, really is you want to vault those secrets. If you're vaulting the secrets, rotation is easy. And then if you've got a leak, if you detect a leak, then it's very fast, actually, because I mean, like minutes. It's versus you just do it.
And automatable. That's the best part of that is you won't have to rotate when an emergency because they'll automatically rotate.
Or you can hit the panic button. I mean, it just rotates everything, or everything you want to rotate, and because you do it on a regular basis, it's no problem because you know everything. You've already tested it. You know it's not a problem.
Now, Grace, you have a slightly different view than us. You are a practitioner out in the world of insurance. Do you think this is an acceptable remediation time? What is an acceptable remediation time for rotation?
Acceptable, I would say instantly, but in reality, I think 27 days is still very quick in the organization when you think about that, because we talk about secrets. Secrets is actually consumed in various business units. And you think you actually fix your business unit secrets? How about the others? So in order for a company to actually remediate one leak secrets, you need to jump for a lot of hoops. Like you need to talk to different senior management, talk to different business units, and then let them understand. It's not whether your team understands it or not. The other teams need to. Also, sometimes if we are talking about shared service, it's not the team that managing the service itself is the one to leak the secrets. It's someone that is actually utilizing the service. So there is a lot of communications that will need to take place. So in reality, it will be longer than 27 days, if you ask me. I think this is a pretty quick estimate for a lot of multinational companies.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the larger, the slower. It's interesting, the people that came to a webinar specifically about this kind of skew a little bit lower on average, because we asked that the poll answers out there are exactly 25% across the board. Everyone answered one of those each option, so it skews somewhere between 27 and 14 days, or right there around that. I guess no, actually, with that last vote, it puts it right at this. So yeah, we're right in line. You can see their survey results yourself in the polls there. All right, well, for the sake of time, and again, we have a lot to cover. This report is pretty deep, and there's a lot of talking points in it. We're going to move on to the next big finding that, at least for us at GetGuarding, we thought, what about that? So, Thomas, what does this tell you? That 2/3 say IT security teams are the ones responsible for remediation?
Yeah, I think this goes in the same direction of what Grace was saying. Like when you have a leak, you need a lot of communication between departments and stuff usually. And this response for me, it goes a long way to show that the rotation, the remediation process, it's very siloed. So you have a process that is not owned by any team 100%, and you have to go back and forth. And this comes a long way to show how difficult it can be to solve the secret sprawl issue. And remediation, it requires an effort and to investigate the usage and find out who's owner of the secret in a way, how it is used, and how we are going to rotate without breaking production or operations, what you want. So yeah, this is quite a significant result from the report. 2/3 say that IT security teams are responsible. It's like nobody's responsible for me.
So, Chris, I'm going to ask you, somebody who works directly with people using and implementing secret management vaults out there in the world and thinking about this in those terms, is this sustainable? Do you think that we are setting ourselves up for failure by working in this paradigm?
Yeah, I think we are actually. But what I'd really like to do is hear Grace's perspective, because from the practitioner on the ground. Because again, I'd actually love to hear Grace's perspective.
Fair enough, Grace. Floor is yours.
Okay. So the thing is, if you need to find someone to actually own the remediation, that would be IT, but they shouldn't be the one that is actually responsible, if you ask me, because how would I know, right? I only, like, let's say I'm a very small number of people. I'm not here to actually chase every single one of the folks here and to understand what is going on. Plus, a lot of the time it's not just, okay, we just rotate a secret and that's about it. Sometimes it's actually related to whether you need to rework your applications. Your authentication methods shouldn't be like that. Then you require the developers' help. So if the developers, when they actually develop code, they don't understand that, it's not sustainable. You will actually see like hundreds and thousands of secret leaks, and the IT security just simply do not have enough manpower for that.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So follow-up question for you then is this just resistance to using security tools correctly? Like, is shifting left like failing us here, or how do we overcome this mentality then?
I think it's not like shifting left is failing, but it is more like when you talk about, okay, when to actually stop people from deploying code with secrets. Usually you cannot actually stop it all the way to the left, because people will be saying, oh, you're not actually letting me to actually write the code that I want and whatsoever. Sometimes it's actually POC and whatsoever. So the way in normal practice is that it's like a very big net, and then you slowly make it harder and harder to pass for each gating. But people might actually abuse this particular mechanism and not fixing it and push it all the way to the end. And then usually people will be actually banging the doors in the IT security team and ask for, okay, can we have an exception? So that makes the situation even worse.
Actually, I'm going to move on to the next point, just because that's a really good lead-in for it, and we'll let you answer. We can go back and talk about that in your next response, Chris. I'll call on you next. Okay. But there's a lot of words on the screen, I know, but I didn't know how to condense this down any further. Basically, the larger the organization, up to team sizes of 100 to 499 individual developers, that's kind of the where it maxes out, like where teams are expressing confidence that their organization is collectively, holistically doing this right. Beyond that, it kind of just maxes out at this level point of like 80%. Like the larger the organization, we are 80% confident that we've got it right. So Chris, is this because in the larger organizations, there's just more team members, better tools, more processes?
Well, yeah, I think there's definitely better processes, but I think there's a couple of things going on here as well. One is an organization, sure, the focus is always on developing these new apps and shifting left, and you can get security built in early in those new apps, but there's also potentially thousands of legacy apps which you haven't secured the credentials for. And an attacker coming in, they don't really care whether it's a new app, an old app, a script, whatever. They just want that credential, and they'll use that credential to do whatever damage or whatever they want to exploit. So I think larger organizations are much more able to invest. Well, they've got much more stringent compliance requirements, so typically, where they've got those compliance requirements are much more. Again, as we look to larger and larger customers that we work with, the very large banks, for example, they're incredibly strict and robust about what they need to do. The smaller organizations are as well, but when you've got much more enforcement, then you also basically adhere to those compliance standards much more closely. So I think that's maybe one of the factors why the bigger organizations are more effective at
Yeah.
and more confident.
I highlighted this fact because it's true. I completely agree with what you said. But just it's funny to me. It's funny because it was a bit of a counterintuitive fact because the larger the organization, the more secrets there are going to be. That's kind of a rule, golden rule. And this fact, it kind of directly goes against this intuitive fact, actually, because the more secrets, the more chances of a leak or risks. And so actually, yeah, you're right. What's winning here is the fact that they benefit from higher compliance requirement, probably better tooling, better AppSec teams, more staffed people in security. So yeah, definitely is I think the reason why we see this phenomenon.
Yeah, Thomas, sorry, I'm going to say the other thing is that the bigger you are, the more likely you are to have had some incident. So you're kind of like, wow, we had this in this one division. We better make sure it doesn't happen across the organization. Mm. So again, I think that's another driving factor.
Yeah, that's a great point. And this does point back to, not to name drop, but this is our webinar, the GitGuardian CyberArk partnership. So finding those keys that are outside of the vault or outside of Conjure already, outside of your management already, is really critical. And the larger you get, the more automation you need to even get it done. I would think the smaller organizations like manual code review might do it, but the larger just, you absolutely have to have the right tools. All right. Again, sake of time, we have so much to get through, but we do have a question for you out in the polls. I forgot to clean up the slide so you can see the options right there. Forget about that. But does this align with what you feel is true in your organization? I'm going to publish the poll right now, and you can go ahead and start voting on that as we move on to our next topic. Apologies for not getting that cleaned up. So next finding was that U.S. companies spend almost twice as much on secrets management as code security in French companies, which this made us scratch our heads. Full disclosure, GitGuardian is a French-based company. We're headquartered in Paris. So Grace, I'll start with you. We didn't get you a chance to answer that last point, but are U.S. companies just more secure then?
No, I think this is more like, well, I think is what we actually always think, because we have a lot of like regulatory like standard that we need to actually follow. There is like different type of pretty much regulators that will actually come after us. So of course you need to spend more, because if you're not spending more to actually have better toolings, if I have secrets that is actually out there, and actually this will actually make into the headlines. No company wants to make into the headlines within in the media. So I think this might be the reason.
Now, Chris, you also work for an internationally based company. I got to ask, is this just because European organizations are underestimating the threat, or is this tied to the fact that EU has already kind of come to terms with privacy and IAM in a way that the US just generally hasn't?
I think it's complicated. So I actually talked to some of the folks in Europe that I work with this morning just to sort of get their perspective. So I think what we kind of see, again, is like France, Germany. So Europe's split across different countries, but say France and Germany, typically more regulated. There's definitely exceptions where there's some very sophisticated, cutting-edge approaches, very dynamic approaches, but generally probably less use of DevOps environments, and in some ways less use of cloud as well. So because of that, there's probably less need to spend money on secrets management versus you look at the Nordics or maybe the UK, and they're a little bit more kind of further ahead of the curve. Again, that's kind of my perspective.
I'd like to add also that in the US, the tech sector has a share of the economy that is unmatched.
That's very true. That's a good point.
It's also normal that you see the biggest budget, because what's at stake is also much bigger than in France. Even though we have champions, or in Germany we have we do have big, large software companies, but we know software companies are a bit more mature on this front. And yeah.
So, I'm glad you brought up budget, because that's really the section we're talking about here is spending. We're not breaking out a lot more data, but there's a lot more data when you read the report. But I'll ask you, Grace, again, as a practitioner, is this, when you spend money, you have to associate it with metrics. Right? Every time you spend money for something like trying to solve a problem. So what metrics actually matter when we're talking about this stuff to you, your exec team, and people above them, the board?
Okay, so in terms of secrets, I think everybody wants to actually know within their repository how many % of their repository is actually clean and do not have critical or high or medium rated secrets. So this is actually one of the metrics that people is actually very interested. Second of all is time for remediation. So whether from we identify the secret leaks, how long it would take for that particular business unit to actually fix it, and whether it is actually in accordance to the standard. This is also the same for external secret leaks. But that, for example, the actual number of leaks, like per week or per month, would be something that would be very fascinated. And also, how long will it take from the discovery to the takedown? So,
Associated question with that, and it's something that I've been talking to a number of people out in the field about, is associated service level objectives around the remediation side. Do you think that that's going to become more of a commonplace phenomenon? Excuse the background noise. A more common phenomenon that we will see, like actual hard numbers around. You can only have so many incidents per year. Your remediation period must shrink, related to what.
Yeah,
asking.
Definitely, because in a company, we have like more and more secrets that is actually leaked. We want that number to shrink. Like it make no sense if we actually invest a lot, and then at the end of the day, people are still not doing their job, and the secret is actually everywhere. This is not what we wanted. Also, as what you folks have also said it, 27 days. 27 days can do a lot of things, from the discovery to the actual remediation. That number need to drive down. Although I said this already on a better side, if you ask me, 27 days, but still 27 days is actually something that, frankly, I cannot accept. But this is the fact here right now.
Chris, I just want to give you a chance to chime in on that one, because again, you're working with some very large scale customers out there who are adopting CyberArk for literally trying to solve this whole problem set.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it does get down to the individual company, and really, I mean, there's typically a lot of secrets and a lot of unsecured secrets in any given organization. The CISOs, the executives, they know that exists, but then it's a question of, security teams are always asked to do more with less. So, and actually, when we start to talk about AI, that's like an even bigger problem. But the bottom line is that there's to do more with less. You've kind of got to automate, but you need those policies in place to basically sort of drive that effort. So I think it will improve, but it's taking its time to improve, and part of it is because the security teams got to be able to secure secrets at a more rapid pace than the developers are creating new secrets, and automation is going to help solve that problem.
Absolutely. Automation, that's how we scale.
Yeah.
So that actually, speaking of CyberArk, we were a little surprised by this one as well. In like, if you look at NIST standards and so many other guidances out there, it's like get a centralized view into your secrets. So you're really pointing at centralized secrets management. And what we're finding is that's not something people are achieving. They're spreading out their secret managers the same way they're spreading out their secrets. So we're seeing not to coin a phrase, but secret vault sprawl. At the same time, saying secret sprawl. I would love to get your thoughts on that, Chris.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, vault sprawl is a huge problem, and then if you've got multiple secrets managers as well, and look, I mean, maybe you're using the built-in, AWS secrets manager, or Azure Key Vault or something, and then you've got, a CyberArk and some other sort of secrets manager, and then maybe you've got an Excel for something else. Again, hopefully not, but so I think, yeah, no, it's a problem. I mean, ideally, you want to be able to have, security needs visibility centrally with one view, and CyberArk, for example, we are bringing in, so we can give an organization visibility to the AWS organization, all the accounts within AWS, the secrets within the accounts in AWS. We'll be able to do the same thing for AKV and eventually for Google as well. So that starts to bring those things together, so you can start to get one view. But it's, I mean, that's where the industry's got to go to get one view, so you can start to sort of really manage and then prioritize what you want to secure, knowing that there's always going to be probably a backlog of unsecured secrets unless you really have automated.
And I definitely know we have some strong opinions about this at GitGuardian, but I'll let Thomas actually speak on this behalf.
Yeah, no, this result is another one highlighting the main conclusion of this report is that you have people very confident in their capacity to remediate fast and be able to handle secrets management very well. But when you ask how many secrets manager do you use, and they say on average 6, you know that it's not true. It's not possible to have same secrets management practices with 6 different managers, and for the problem of visibility of how do you remediate a leak when you don't know where the secret was stored in the first place. So yeah, another point to highlight with the secrets management best practices followed by just 44% of developers, this tend to indicate overconfidence.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And honestly, this is survey data, so this is what they believe they have. So it might be.
This is the tip of the iceberg, probably. So, yeah.
So I'm going to ask your opinion on this same question, Grace. But as we do that, I want to open up our final poll here. So I will go ahead and launch this poll and ask you, how many secret managers do you think you have inside of your organization? I'll get this launched. But Grace, I want a slightly different question on that. How do we end up in this situation? From a practitioner standpoint, why is it acceptable that we can just spin up another secret manager?
Well, it's not acceptable, but it is usually the way it is, especially in multinational companies. They actually have different geography, and some company might actually comes on as like M&A. So they actually bring in their secrets manager, or like different business unit. The bigger ones might actually have the secrets manager that they like and they have been using it. And then maybe the enterprise, they also have another one. But they are not willing to actually migrate because to them it's hard. Like everything is actually tied in already. Like how can you actually move from one secrets manager to another? So like later on you will have, I think for a lot of companies, at least you will have a couple.
Yeah. So. That is what our surveys are showing already. Though the majority, 50% of people, and this is a very unscientific poll, everybody, obviously, but 50% of people said they had one system for the entire org, and they're on the right path with that. But we have one poor soul out there who said they have 10 or more. I think you can email Chris after this and start getting on the right track.
Yeah.
And start working with you. But yeah, that's, again, unscientific. All right, let's move on to our last major section we're going to talk about. We have a set of hot topics we're going to do a speed round on after this one, and then we're going to get to those questions. I see we have multiple questions in the questions area. And again, if you have a question, pop it in over in questions. If it's for a specific panelist, please indicate that. Otherwise, we're going to do it round robin style and just get everybody's opinions on it here in the last 15 minutes of this. But let's move on to AI, because you can't, it's 2024, you can't have a webinar or a talk or anything out in the world if you don't talk about AI. And yeah, 43% of, and there's a lot about AI in the report, but 43% worry about AI reproducing sensitive patterns. Thomas, you wrote this question and helped facilitate this. What does this mean exactly?
So what does it mean is that by far the leading concern for the respondents is the concern of leaking sensitive information to a copilot, for instance. And this is by far the leading concern. We suggested other options like AI learning from your patterns or PII or stuff like that. But no, it's more like developers are going to use Copilot. There is no no way about it's for sure. But I'm worried that they're going to leak so many stuff, so many information to these Copilots. And especially in the US, there is if you have a look at the results from by country, the US are much more into these topics already than the rest, even the UK. So yeah, quite interesting.
So Chris, I'll ask you: do you think? And I'll let actually everybody answer this one. It's a following question for you though. Do you think coding assistants are making developers more careless with secrets?
Oh, that's a great question. So actually, so I was at KubeCon last week and actually had breakfast with a couple of our developers and also with Katie Norton from IDC, and spoke to a few customers as well. The takeaway I got from those discussions was that AI, the coding assistants, help people be much more productive, but the code isn't as good. It's got more errors in it. It fails in the build process more. So now I think that's where we are today. AI is moving at a really rapid pace. So part of it is just folks learning how to use the tools, and then AI putting in the safeguards so that you automatically onboard the secrets and everything else. But I think at the moment, yeah, it's actually probably creating more errors. Well, I don't want to say creating more than it's solving, but it is creating. The code isn't so great at the moment coming out with the coding assistants.
I did see conflicting reports earlier this year, or actually back in October they came out. It feels a long time ago. But it was, yes, we're getting more PRs opened, but one study said 41% more bugs introduced. So it's actually slowing the overall delivery down. And that feels right. But again, that's independent research. Go out and do your own homework on that, folks. Grace, just the same question to you. Do you think that the AI coding assistants are causing more issues than they're solving at this point?
So first of all, to me, AI did help, but let me explain what I want to say here. So to me, AI assistant is your assistant. So you will be only as good as what prompt you are actually putting it in. So if your developer that is actually really lousy in your coding practice, this will actually make the hundreds more very lousy code. So the thing is, right now, at least in AI assistant development, the prompt actually matters a lot. So when people may use it, they might actually have a false sense of security, like, they will actually help me to actually develop the code like faster. But sometimes for a lot of things, you need to, I would say, directly direct the code assistant to do. If they're not like directly prompt them to need to have certain security features, the code that they develop might be less secure. But when you actually be the one to actually type it out, you will know, I need to do this and I need to do that. So I think this might be the reason.
No, we love AI around here, and we don't want to give off the impression that we don't. In fact, last month our webinar, and I'll drop the link to that here in the chat for everyone, was about AI, but not about the coding assistant side of it, more on general use of it. And then using LLMs to do non-declarative programming, things like find a pattern, which machines are really bad at, and it's really hard to account for all those use cases. So if you want to see a whole webinar about what our opinions are on that matter, there it is. There's a link. You can view that another time at your leisure. But that does raise another question about AI. And can we solve the scale and scope of our security problems without using like LLMs and AI. Kind of a hot take, but I'll start with you, Grace.
No, you right now you have too much information around. You have too much like security alerts and whatsoever. It's no way for you to have a person sitting down and try to understand what's going on and do all the correlations. You need AI, that's for sure. So what I'm saying here is not like, oh, I don't like AI whatsoever, but people need to understand AI only as good as what you're doing. Like if you're not actually giving out right command, right prompt, it won't help you that much. So I think people need to know that they're smart, but you need to tell them what to do.
Someone recently described AI assistants as mediocre minions at best, and I really like that. Minions aren't always the brightest, and they always don't do exactly what you want, but that's why they're minions. They're not leading. All right, we're going to go into a speed round. I'm going to do some hot takes. Me and Thomas worked on this, and we're just going to go down the row. We'll start with you, Grace, and get you the first chance just to like give me 2-3 sentences what your gut tells you when we say, based on everything, we think that manual code review for secrets is honestly security theater.
Well, I couldn't think of anything for this one. Can I ask someone to actually take it? And
Yeah, sorry.
I can take it.
Like that. I was trying to give you the for the rest of these, we'll just open the floor. The first person to speak.
Hit the buzzer.
Yeah, I wish I had a buzzer. You could raise your eyes and see. You can raise your hands. But Thomas, you help me write this.
Yeah, no, because there is a result in the report that really struck me is that we still have 13% of respondents who said they rely on manual code reviews to detect secrets. And this is just considering this is just people willing to admit it. And I think it shows the long way we still have to educate why code reviews are just not able to stop secrets from being a threat in our code, because you have secrets lurking in the Git history, and people don't realize that manual code reviews are completely ineffective in this case. So yeah, just I completely agree with
I
you.
can also add on a little bit from what you said. Manual code review should actually put to rest. You have so many code that develop. You cannot use your pair of eyes to actually review. How many line of codes that you can review per day?
Yeah, that's true.
Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I used to be a coder a long time ago, but no, I think Grace hit it on the head. It's like, how many can you review per day? You need to automate. You've got to automate.
All right, we'll move on, because again, this is the quick take section. NSTRE's obsession with shift left has failed for secrets management.
Right? I don't know. I think in some cases it has, but in other cases, again, you've still got this kind of massive legacy of legacy code that you've already developed, and shift left doesn't help you at all for that.
Shift left only works if you don't have a lot of exceptions.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. And I know here at GitGuardian, I'll speak on our behalf. That's why we're building non-blocking developer tools at this point, like our VS Code plugin we came out with a couple months ago, getting good adoption because it's just a warning. It just helps you as an assistant, not a full block, like our PR pre-commit hooks, where they're blocking. And that's why some developers have worked around them. But if they can just get a warning, not blocking warning, some developers turned out to like that. Anyway, last hot take before we'll open up. I'll start asking the questions that are in the question area. Thomas, you want to take this?
For me, this one, it already happened. For me, the industry game changer secrets related breach was Uber. Twice actually they were breached twice because of the leaked secrets, and the most recent was 2022. So already happened. Will happen again.
Yeah,
I think we have too many. I think we have too many, so people are not focusing it. We need a major one that is big enough that people are focusing in it.
Oh.
Yeah, I think the other scary thing is it's the ability for the attacker to move from the machine or secret related environment over to the human environment as well. And that's, it doesn't, just because you protect your human environments doesn't mean that you can ignore your secret environments, because you can go back from exploiting a secret breach, just like in the Uber case, from a simple script back to getting access to the human identities. It's a problem. It's a problem.
Well, that's actually a pretty good segue, because now we're going to move over to the questions that our audience asked us. And we already have 3, and these are very wide questions. I got to prep you for them. So let's try to keep it focused and get them all answered. I am apologies for mispronouncing the name. Nurajaman, I believe is how you pronounce that. Again, apologies for mispronouncing your name. Asked, what are the best practices in secret management? Kind of a wide question, and I can link some blogs in here while you're talking, but would love to hear, Chris, why don't you start us off?
I think it's 2 basic things. Don't hard code. I mean, again, it's very basic, and then rotate those secrets. And I could talk for hours, but those are the 2 most basic.
Mm-hmm.
I would also add, you need to have developer utility frameworks that can actually encourage people to use, such that you authenticate in the right way, but not actually just hack coding it because you're lazy.
Absolutely. We couldn't agree more on that. In fact, I am dropping a link out in the questions. I'll drop it in the chat too, to a blog that one of my colleagues wrote here on API key security and secrets management. Hopefully it helps you springboard off of that, but there's a lot of documentation out there. In fact, our YouTube channel, CyberArk's YouTube channel, a lot of really great information about that subject. So very wide. If you have a follow-up on that, happy to. But again, some wide questions, so we'll move on to the next one. Gento asks, sorry for mispronouncing your name. What is the suggested best rotation policy for secrets? Chris, I know you got a hot take on that one.
Yeah, I mean, we're probably about 90 days is what's kind of what we're seeing as sort of normal. I mean, Grace, you may have a different perspective, but yeah.
It actually depends whether your secret is protecting things that is actually like, okay, if it is like critical ones, of course you need to redeem it more. If those are like not that important, maybe 1 year. Like, but this, you need to have a tier approach. Not everything 90 days.
No, fair enough. Yeah.
Thomas, I think I know your answer.
I would say if I had to give a tier list for but it's all about secrets management as well. But top tier is S tier will be no secret, and actually you can do that. You can do that with certificates of stuff like that. So it's quite advanced, but doable. Then you have short-lived secrets, close second, which actually don't need rotation because short-lived. You don't have long-lived credentials, but achievable, difficult, but achievable. And then you have, yes, for long-lived secrets, you have to have a policy, a rotation policy for like at least regular every 60, 90 days. But honestly, yes, you need to be able to detect when a leak happens, whatever your policy, because otherwise it's just the attacker still has a window of opportunity. So yeah.
And I would just point out that we do have a paper we wrote a couple years ago, the secret management maturity model. And that's one of the threshold points between moving between an improving organization and a maturing organization, in our opinion, is your reactive in your rotations versus proactive in rotations. So if you're at a point where you have those policies in place, you're on the right track. Reviewing those policies on a regular basis, to Grace's point, based on what it's guarding, is always going to be the best use of that. But I dream of a world one day where it's just IAM policies baked into the tools, and it gives short-lived credentials that last for the length of that connection, and they never exist again. That's my dream, but we'll get there one day, I hope.
Yeah. So, Dwayne, I mean, to a certain extent, if you have like centralized secrets management and automated rotation, I mean, you can. It's I don't want to say effortless, but you can rotate secrets very, very easily, very frequently. It's essentially automatic. You set the policy. It's not a difficult thing to do. But not everyone has that.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing new. I think we're going to see some new programming paradigms around this in the coming future, just because this is such a widespread problem that we're grappling this as an industry and just in computer science in general. It's a really interesting time to be alive in focusing on this space because the opportunity is just so wide and to attack it from so many levels. But again, I live in this world and breathe this stuff daily, so I get excited. All right, we had another question also from Yento out there. Again, apologies for mispronouncing your name. What are the possible monitoring and audits around secret management? That's a good question.
Chris, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, the first step is really discovery, and maybe that's one of the best practices as well. Is first of all, kind of know what secrets you've got and kind of where they are and who's using them, and there's tools in place to do that. And then once you've got them secured, then the next level is using a tool like GitGuardian to basically figure out if there's any leaks of those secrets and then sort of monitoring them. That's my quick take on that.
That's a good one. Grace, any thoughts?
Yeah, and again, I always add on. The remediation part is also very, very important. But the remediation part is more than just, okay, I just rotated secret and call it a day and delete it from the repository.
Right.
You need to have a longer trend analysis and see what would be your area that need to improve and develop developers friendly utilities, framework, and libraries such that people can utilize what it should be, but not creating something that is totally wrong. Then you can actually stop the bleeding.
Mm-hmm. It's actually one of the things NIST calls out in their recommendations around what they refer to as NPE, non-person entities, but NHIs, non-human identities, machine identities, whatever you want to call them, is that you need to do constant monitoring of anomalous use. It doesn't prescribe, it's not prescriptive, so it doesn't say exactly how to achieve that, but if you're looking for guidance out there, and there's a lot of it, you can get into the weeds on that pretty quick. Thomas, any other thoughts on that before we start wrapping up here?
Yeah, I think we covered it. It's a very large topic. It would deserve maybe another webinar, but definitely track the usage, and be able to track how the honor of the secret is paramount for ease of remediation as well.
Excellent. So with that, I don't see any other questions coming in. And I want to respect everybody's time because I know we all have other meetings to get to in the day, workday. We really appreciate you joining us today. But I'll give everyone a chance to make a closing statement. We'll go reverse of how we started. So Chris, I'll start with you. If you make any closing statements on you or anything you want to shout out from CyberArk.
No, so I think just basically there's a look between GitGuardian, CyberArk, and other companies in the space. There's a lot of information to help folks sort of get up to speed and learn and and make sure those folks secure those secrets. I think, look, we're obviously a vendor, CyberArk's a vendor, but the most important thing is please discover your secrets, don't hard code, and then rotate them, and then have some sort of policies in place. Obviously, very simplistic statement, but it's so critical to essentially secure those secrets because they can be so damaging if they get out into the wilds. And GitGuardian will find it in the wilds for you, but you kind of don't really want to you don't want it to get out in the wilds in the first place.
Agreed. Grace?
So to me, I think as a security practitioner, I would say when we actually think about secrets management and how to actually mitigate the risk, we also need to think about the developers. because if the developers is not happy from what you are actually doing, they will always find a way to go around and not follow standard practice. So we should actually develop a way such that we help them to actually have an easier way to dealing with secrets. We also would actually help them such that they can actually detect it earlier and would actually already have the knowledge that, oh, I might not actually have that put into our code before actually even push and have the PR request. So we need to have developer-friendly experience in secret management. That's my take on this one.
Yeah, totally agree.
Couldn't agree with you more.
And just if you're a developer and you're hearing that, I can recommend you're probably using Git, and so the best way to have a security engine is like pre-commit hooks. To me, it's like exactly the same as fastening your seatbelt if you're in your car. It's like you fasten your seatbelt. Any incidents, you're safe. And exactly the same, but for security hygiene.
And with that, my final words are thank you so much again for joining us. This is being recorded. You will have access to this afterward. We'll reach out. And thanks everybody for being here. Really appreciate everyone's time today for this event.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. Great discussion. Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Right.
Bye.
Thanks so much. Yep. Have a great day.